I haven't added any new games. I'll just give you an update as far as my collection. I have Rise of the Tomb Raider 2013. I have Judgment, Montezuma's Revenge. I'm trying to think of other ones. I have Sonic Adventure 2, but I need a keyboard for that. Um, Dead Rising. What other ones did I put? I had to make sure I put some of these. Kena Bridge of Spirits, Spider-Man, Forza. That thing was a bastard to try to get a hold and try to put on there. So I'm gonna be and Star Wars Squadrons was the last new one, and there's a VR option, but you have to get a separate VR set. You can't do like a Labo thing and build it. I don't think people would want that anyway. I would have liked to have tried it. Would have been interesting. But you have to connect, you have to buy a whole separate set. So this is a complicated investment, but one I think that you can once you get one of these. I mean, if you get the top model, it's worth it. Some people buy the Evercade, they want to play their pixely 8-bit games, that's fine. Um, this is Happy Birthday, Ralph Baer 101. Now, I missed his 100th birthday. I was not able to do it. By the time his birthday rolled around, I had to start going back to Universal. There was a break in between, so I was not able to do it. Um, so I would have to have done it live, and I would have preferred to have done it like because of the nature of what I'm doing. I'm doing this sort of interview reach. So much like Imamura for Star Fox, I'm doing a read along again, and this is it's one of the few electronic gaming monthly issues that I've kept. Now, this one I kept not just because, oh, should you buy a Dreamcast or wait? They got PS2 Dolphin, as they called it, because they didn't call it GameCube yet. No GameCube, but Dolphin or Xbox on the way. And we're looking at this time period. We showed you this, right? The Steam Deck, and then you got PS5. But here we're going back in time to this time period when we didn't even have the GameCube. People still had their N64s and their Game Boy Colors, and nothing yet, nothing on the horizon yet. We still had some time. We still had people still believed in the Game Boy. There could be more Game Boy games, and I'll flip through some of this with you and we'll look at. Oh my gosh, there's Lara Croft. Elvira was looking at was playing some Lara Croft. I'm not. This is the game. I fucking hate this game. I really do. I can't even get past the tutorials. What is this one? Oh, Blades of Steel. Some of these old retro games. There's Ash Ketchum. This is some of the fan art. What is this one? I forget what it is. I don't know what it is. Some inside joke. Yes, I got a messy house, whatever. Some girl had this, and I knew she was old. I embarrassed her because I knew she had. Nobody really has one of these anymore. But some girl I met on a bus had one of these. There's Yasmin Bleeth. So we have Yay or Nay. I remember these were the good old days, and when we didn't have Angry Joe, you didn't have me, you didn't have Vine Sauce, you didn't have RGT85 or Review Tech USA or Boogie or any YouTubers or Twitch streamers, Mike Matei, Angry Video Game Nerd, nobody, Call UK, none of these guys. So there's Jay Leno. Oh, Vinny would like this one. If I get a chance, I'll show this one to Vine Sauce. The Gray Leno show there. Leno's Ready to Rumble. I see. Final Fantasy 11. So we're going through this really quick. All this stuff, etiquette. These are the games that were coming soon. When you had a magazine, you would just go through this and you looked at the shit. Wait, is that Tommy? Let me see if that's Tommy. No, I thought that was Tommy Tallarico. 12-year-old Tommy Tallarico. I mean, he's in his 40s, so he would have been in his 20s. Shit. Zombie Revenge. Now, this is my focus was the Dreamcast. Psychic Force 2012. Tee Off Golf. Xena. Legacy of Kain. This one I never got very far in either. This game was complicated. Let's see. Shadow Man. There's Spider-Man. I started playing my Monopoly Avengers game. I feel like it's kind of too easy. Rayman 2, I have this one on my PS Vita. But, the problem with the PS Vita is that the stuff gets corrupted on purpose so that you have to go and re-download everything every month and shit. You must be dreaming. Look at all this crappy weird shit. This is probably the only one I really like is the gear shift knob and wheels. SNK versus Capcom. I remember this face. I always remember this face for some reason. I don't know, she's still alive, this girl. Chocobo's Dungeon. I have this one on the 3DS. These are PS2 games, PS1 games, PS1 games, PlayStation 1 games. Okay, here's Pac-Man World. Here's the N64. This was a very different time when we didn't have internet. The internet was very basic. You went on somebody's homepage about Game Boy Color, or somebody's homepage about Donkey Kong, or somebody's homepage, Mike's homepage. Go to this homepage and you can find all this information. Oh, what a time that was. Very different time. These are Sarge's Heroes. This is when, oh yeah, here we go. This is one of the main articles. Should you buy it? This is the star attraction here. This is when it was called the Dolphin. And you got these actors posing for EGM. And look at all this shit right here. This is a different time. Arcade Classics, Ultimate Weapon, Xbox. I had a funny feeling. When I saw this, I said, the Xbox is going to be something. This is what they called it. This is the model here. The Dolphin. That's it. The Dolphin. Nothing else. Xbox. This is the original logo. I think they were going to come up with Xbox with the big X and then the little box in the bottom. You should wait for these if you're going to do these things. So Dreamcast still had a chance, but I think people knew behind the scenes it was going to go down. This picture, I love this picture. These were the funny pictures when even Donkey Kong 64 didn't have official art yet. Didn't have official art. I don't know when this issue was. This must have been before 2000. Now, here's the main event for this video. We are going to talk about Ralph Baer. So I missed his 100th birthday last year, and this is his 101st birthday. And it's not a long article, and I try to keep this magazine intact as best I can. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this all out to you, just like the Star Fox interview. And then hopefully I won't get hoarse. I might lose my voice a bit. There may be a water break. We'll see what happens here. Okay. The father of video games, Ralph Baer. You might have seen my video with his son talking to Tommy Tallarico. What a shameless plug he did. The Baer Essentials, as we're calling it. It's called the Baer Essentials. You've seen the future of games. Now find out how it all began. Okay, so I'm going to start here. In 1982, Video Game Magazine published, so this is this here, published an interview with Ralph Baer, between Ralph Baer and editor Steve Bloom, in which Bloom referred to Baer as the godfather of video games, quote unquote. Although it was an honorable title, Baer made it clear in the interview that he would rather be known as the father of video games. See, sometimes I call him Godfather, but okay. So he is the father of video games, quote, end quote. 17 years later, mainstream. So this interview, let me see when this was. Sorry, you're looking at the Sharps container while I figure out exactly when this interview was made. So pardon me if I'm trying to be slow in the head here. Claim Sports, January. So this is, if you can see that, January 2000. So the Dreamcast had just been released. Father of video games. Okay, 17 years later, mainstream historians still don't recognize Baer's proper place in video game history. The current edition of the New York Public Library desk reference states that Nolan Bushnell invented video games. Most other resources agree. So what's the real story? Now, side note, I never heard of this man before I read this magazine. So that's why I kept a hold of it. So what's the real story? Is Ralph Baer an engineer? with over 150 patents in his name worldwide, was he really the father of video games? Further, if he actually invented video games, what has he done for us since? And why does Nolan Bushnell continue to receive all the credit? So here he is with you can see he's got the I don't know, like it's a weird toy. You can see in the background he's got Odyssey, he's got all kinds of things down there. Look like eight. There's all kinds. Look at all the stuff he's got. I mean, this man works on circuit boards and doesn't like ATL. It's VHS tape. Look at all the stuff he's got here. Right? He's got drawers. Look at that. That one's out of place. That's amazing. This is how you know the man's busy, right? Or he was busy, because he passed away in 2012 at the age, I think it was 92. He was 92 years old. I think he passed away in 2012, or maybe it was later. 92 years old. Hold on a minute. No, that's not right. 2014. So 2014, he was 92 years old. So 9 years later, hopefully the son, the grandson, they all kept it up. So what I'm going to do, I can't read through this. There's no fucking way. So we're going to focus on his lovely face. And I'll read this page here up until Representative Ball. Okay? When I get to Representative Ball, we're going to turn this page. Ralph Baer set out to be an inventor. Upon his graduation from Chicago's American Television Institute of Technology in 1949, he became one of the first people in history to receive a degree in television engineering. After designing some electromedical equipment, he obtained a job with New York-based L'Oreal. It's kind of like L'Oreal. L'Oreal, where his first assignment was to design a home television set. At first, Baer suggested he include some sort of game in the set, but management didn't think much of the idea, so he designed the TV and forgot about the home TV games for more than 15 years. Wow. Yeah, I mean, when I think of TV like in the 40s, I think of like you see this TV here, right? And you see that TV way back there. But when I thought of the old television sets, I would think of this brown box, right? And I would think of a TV with a little circle on it. So to me, that was like old school TV. So this, I mean, obviously, most of you have way bigger screens than mine. I'm a bachelor. I don't have to worry about all that. So these are what TV screens look like. Okay. Let's see, where are we at? The idea mysteriously came back to him as he waited for the arrival of another engineer in New York bus station in 1966. At that time, Baer was the division manager and chief engineer for equipment design at Sanders Associates Incorporated. This large New Hampshire-based company, which today is the division of, Lockheed, developed complex military electronic systems that had nothing at all to do with consumer-oriented products, such as television sets and games. Still, the idea of developing a small game box that could transmit fun things to a standard television set excited Baer. Upon his return to New Hampshire, Baer quickly wrote a 4-page paper outlining his idea. What he had in mind was a spot generating device that would place 2 spots on a screen. These spots could be repositioned anywhere on the screen by rotating built-in vertical or horizontal control knobs. He accompanied the paper with an elementary mechanic that demonstrated how the generator could transmit the spots as well as color background signals to any television set that was tuned to channels 3 or 4. So what I'm describing is the beginnings of Pong. So you try to imagine those two white, you have the white line here, the white line here, the thing goes back and forth. And that's basically what he was creating. But they were these squares and not like balls and rectangles. It wasn't like that sophisticated yet. Baer assigned a technician named Bob Tremblay to build the unit according to the schematic. In 1 month, Tremblay delivered an actual unit that could produce 2 moving spots on the screen. Baer and Tremblay quickly modified it into a chase game where one spot represented a fox and the other a hunter. The hunter chased the fox, and the fox tried to avoid the hunter. The fox disappeared as the 2 spots made contact. So, it's like you try to say, like in real life, you try to say, okay, this is the hunter, right? And let's get Donkey Kong. This is the fox. So just trying to get the 2 squares touch. And once the 2 touch, that was it. They were gone. So That's exactly how he, they were trying to. It's like if when people think how complex do you want to make a video game, you don't want to be complex. You just want to be like, just come up with a simple idea and then you build upon that idea until you come up with a masterpiece. That's how you should do anything, everything and anything. Um, let's see. Baer then demonstrated the game to Herb Chapman, Sanders' corporate director of research and development. Although Sanders didn't develop consumer products, Chapman was so impressed with the concept of playing games on a TV set that he allocated $2,500 for further development of the device. The next step came when Baer had another technician, Bill Harrison, take apart a plastic toy rifle and add circuitry to it, which, if we're all familiar with the zapper, I don't know, I don't have my zapper, but like, okay, I have a messy floor. Okay, so there you can see the Wiimote and Zapper down there. So basically, it's like the Nintendo Zapper or the Wii Zapper, whatever you use. So let's see. Uh, Adding circuitry to it. Before long, they were using the gun to shoot at a moving spot on the screen and wipe it out when they hit it. The light guns you wield today are essentially the same as Baer's toy rifle prototype. Baer and Harrison were, let's see, did they use, okay, they used a plastic toy, okay. Baer and Harrison were next joined by Bill Rush, Rusch, another Sanders engineer. A third machine control spot was added shortly afterward. It evolved into a ball, and the two original spots logically became paddles. Video ping pong was born. Herb Chapman was again invited to sample the game, and he allocated another $8,000, which was used to perfect a new prototype that was demonstrated to the top brass at Sanders in June 1967. Everyone liked what they saw, although they didn't know what they were going to do with the unit business-wise. They officially gave Baer the go-ahead to financing and to continue developing the product and to come up with a business plan. Baer realized that one problem with the system was its bland graphics. Those are the days. I think I remember Space War was from an oscilloscope. An oscilloscope has a round screen too, right? And you're trying to come up with graphics on an oscilloscope, which is reading out voltage or reading out how something is functioning, right? Oscilloscopes, you kind of have the basis for life support, beep, beep, right? So trying to come up with like two dots or two like things happening on an oscilloscope is difficult. But that was 1960 something, that's how it was. So you had the bland graphics. To keep the unit's price reasonable, the system only had the power to create the most minimal effects. It could only generate a vertical line that served as a net, paddles that looked like tiny rectangles, and a small blip that represented a ball, which is obviously Pong. And here he is here. Now, let's see. Okay, here's what it said. Your Dreamcast, your Nintendo, N64, they're all descendants of Baer's, his, what is it called? His brown box prototype. So this is the brown box prototype. What does that look like to you, right? So there's Pong, and there's the original video game console. This is the original console right here. I mean, we talk about the Wii U and the Steam Deck emulation and the Wii. Here's the Wii, right? And the Switch. The Switch is right here on top of my Rubik's Cube. But this is the brown box. This is where it all started, right? So let me see. I might have to get a light because I can't read in this weird shading. We're supposed to get daylight savings soon. Okay. Baer experimented with ways to make the graphics more... Okay, so I'm just going to show you his picture right here while I do this. He experimented with ways to make the graphics more exciting while keeping the costs low. Early on, he figured out how to include colorful backdrops for the games. The hardware was modified so it could receive a video signal. Colorful wall charts displaying such as a tennis court, complete with lines, so overlays. Net and spectators were created. These charts were then photographed with a color video camera. The video signal was sent to the game hardware, which merged the backdrops with the electronic ball and paddles. On screen, this gave the impression of a game with sophisticated, colorful graphics. Baer decided that the cable industry would be the perfect vehicle to deliver these colorful background colorful backgrounds into homes that had the game console. He invited Irving Kahn, the chairman of the board of Teleprompter, a New York City cable company, to Sanders' headquarters to sample it. Although Kahn was impressed, he later rejected the idea because the fledgling cable industry was in deep trouble and he had his own problems. With or without cable TV, Baer still had the problems of figuring out who would take a liking to the concept of playing home TV games. His device needed a manufacturer. Let's see. Sanders was simply not in the position to assemble and distribute consumer products. The logical company to build a TV-oriented product was naturally one that also produced television sets. Baer soon began demonstrating his brown box, quote-unquote, prototype too. Okay, so before we do that, there's a Baer Unplugged segment here. So I'm going to try to read this while we look at his face here. We sat down with the father of video games at his New Hampshire ranch home to reminisce about his brown box. Unimaginative executives, unimaginative, and Nolan Bushnell. EGM says, your invention spawned a $7 billion industry. Your grandkids must be proud. Ralph Baer says, every time I go out west to visit my kids, my oldest grandson, who's 9 going on 10, has me come to class and bring a Simon and open it up and tell the kids what's inside and how it works. Oh my God, that's great. Oh, I hope there's footage of that. If there's footage of this, I'll react to that later on. Not in this one, though. As far as video games are concerned, they don't really extrapolate on their that their PlayStations or N64s, Nintendo 64s, evolved from my work. But they ask really intelligent questions. Surprisingly, very few kids ask the question you shouldn't be asking, which is, how much money did you make? And EGM says, so pardon us for asking, but how much money did you make? Ralph's like, I can't complain. I've done rather well. I've never made millions. I made millions for the company, $100 million by the time I got through with all those lawsuits. We took $16 billion from Mattel alone from one time for the Intellivision infringement. Yeah. I'm starting to put the pieces in my head right now. I have not read this interview in a long time, but I think it's fair to say Ralph would not be very happy with Tommy's nonsense. Think about it this way. I was in a company, so Ralph continues, I was in a company of 10,000 employees. I left the division behind of 500 people, which I ran. I no longer got up in the morning with a rock in my stomach. Total freedom. Oh, I know how you feel. Next thing you know, they make me an engineering fellow in the company. An engineering fellow. So I guess that's it's highlighted here and like titled engineering fellow. So I'm not sure. Now I can do what I want. I can walk into meetings and tell them that they're full of crap. Tell them the bullshit that they're putting on the board is just that. How do you pay for that? What is that worth? EGM says, you came up with the concept of home video games way back when you started at L'Oreal in the 50s. Where'd the idea come from? Ralph says, at that time I thought, geez, wouldn't it be nice if we could do something else with the TV set by tuning to channel 3 or 4 on the stupid thing? And of course, nobody wanted to hear that. So it was percolating in the back of my mind all these years. Why wasn't L'Oreal management keen on the idea? Okay. Let's see. I think it continues on. So what I'm going to do is, this is kind of a weird way that they do this. I wish that they had put the whole interview and not split it up. So I'm going to go back to the black text here. Baer had soon began demonstrating his brown box prototype in several major television set manufacturers. Although they all marveled at the new product concept, they were afraid to make a move and pioneer a completely new product category. The opinion of the TV executives changed when Baer demonstrated the product to RCA. There he found people who were interested. Sanders began negotiating, but RCA's demands were just too great. When RCA couldn't get, I was looking at my TV right now, it's a Daewoo. My RCA TV is in the kitchen right now, or the dining room. When RCA couldn't get all the onerous conditions that they wanted for the license agreement, they backed away from the video game negotiations. So no RCA console, no RCA video game console, never ever. In case anybody ever says. Soon afterward, Bill Enders, one of the main negotiators for RCA, left the company for Magnavox. Magnavox. Baer's demonstration had so impressed Enders that he convinced his new bosses to view a demonstration of the brown box. And they were equally impressed, and before long, a contract was drawn up that awarded Magnavox the full exclusive rights to use and to sub-license Sanders' patents and technology to produce video games. So Magnavox's production console was very similar to Baer's prototype brown box, and internally, the circuitry was practically identical. The major difference was in how players could switch back and forth between the assorted array of built-in games. The brown box used 16 toggle switches, so right there you can kind of see these are the different ones. Wow. I don't know if I can. Let me see what we got here. It says, okay, so here you can't read this, but it says handball, and then it says ping pong on the side of this brown box. Okay. Oh, where am I at? Okay. So the brown box used 16 toggle switches. Magnavox opted to use plug-in cards instead of video backgrounds fed in from an outside source. Magnavox decided to include colorful overlays, that were placed over the television screen to simulate the full color graphics that were impractical to 1972. Mark Bussler, Classic Game Room, CGR Publishing. He is like, it's like the man was like older than he was. He understood all these things that you see here. Fairchild Channel F. Well, I'll go over what these are exactly. So let's see. The Magnavox Odyssey was released in May 1972 to indifferent shoppers who viewed it as a novelty. Sales for it were hindered by the fact that it was only available at Magnavox-owned stores, where salesmen gave the impression that it could only work on Magnavox televisions in an effort to sell TVs also. Oh, okay. So, I haven't read this interview in a while, so now I kind of see how that could have happened. Magnavox eventually sold about 100,000 Odyssey systems in 1972, but it may have been Pong's success that spurred interest in the home console. People wanted Pong, and the Odyssey was the closest thing that they had to bring home. So Pong, I remember the original. You might have seen them. They were like these. They kind of look like. They kind of look like one of the minions here. This is Stuart, I think. So imagine if it was the upright model had the yellow kind of tacky colors that they had in 1960s and 70s. So they could bring Pong home. Actually, the similarities between Odyssey Ping Pong and Atari Pong were so close they raised some eyebrows. To the folks at Sanders and Magnavox, it was just too much of a coincidence that Atari released a game so similar to their own. A little investigation turned up a guest book of an Odyssey demonstration at an open house held in 1972, January. In Burlingame, that's a nice name, Burlingame, not Burlington, Burlingame, California, by the local Magnavox dealerships. One of the attendees who signed in had been Nolan Bushnell. He saw Odyssey Ping Pong while he was there. Pong's success ignited the video game industry, even Ralph. So let me show you what these are. So although Baer also designed units for Coleco, such as the Telestar arcade and if Ralph Baer could have seen what happened with the Coleco Chameleon and television Amico, Jesus, oh, he would have been so pissed off. Although Baer also designed the units for Coleco, his Odyssey spawned hundreds of knockoffs. If you're over 20, you probably played some of these. I was over 20 at that time. I was born in 70, so I was 22 when this magazine came out. But I think Mark Bussler would probably remember. So you got, that's the Coleco Telestar right here. Okay. I'm not sure which one of these is Fairchild Channel F. Yeah, I don't know which one, but there. Look at all of these. I think Seth Meyers made a joke about one of these in one of his skits. But that's what we had, boys and girls. We did not have. There was no Xbox, no PlayStation. Okay, so we're going to continue on, and here, I'm not sure how much I can show you here, but here's all his stuff. Oh my God, drawers everywhere, drawers everywhere. Okay, let's continue on. We got a good light here. We got a nice picture. Um, let's see if I can do this. Yeah, presentation is key here. Baer fully acknowledges Bushnell for successfully establishing the industry. Because Bushnell's name is associated with Pong, the first well-known video game, it's easy to see why Bushnell is always erroneously labeled as the inventor. Magnavox, which had the responsibility for protecting Sanders' patent, soon sued Atari, among others, on the grounds that Pong was copied from the Odyssey. The various parties to the lawsuit lost their cause and had to pay up back royalties and penalties. Atari, represented by Bushnell and his lawyers, opted out of the case and settled out of court. They sublicensed the patent rights from Magnavox for a mere $100,000, probably a couple of million today, for a paid-up license. The deal of the century, maybe, considering that Atari made Bushnell a billionaire several times over. With rights to the patent in tow, Atari moved on to become the number one name in video games. The name Atari became synonymous with video games just as the name Nintendo would become a decade later. Atari eventually made billions from video game consoles and cartridges, instead because based in part on Sanders' patents. So let's see. For every guy who has imagination, there's always 15 guys who don't. Yeah. Sanders and Magnavox didn't do badly, however. They licensed approximately 100 video game manufacturers worldwide during the mid-70s, and they collected royalties on cartridges that were covered by the patents, probably including ET. They also launched and won lawsuits against other patent infringers, including Mattel, Activision, Nintendo, and Sega. Oh my God. Nintendo has problems. In most accounts of video game history, the story of Ralph Baer ends here. Bushnell's life after Atari is well documented with the many companies that he began, such as the Pizza Time Theater, Chuck E. Cheese, Sente, Androbot, and Axelon. Axelon. However, Ralph Baer's association with video games didn't end with the birth of the Odyssey. It was only the beginning. Following the success of Pong, many other companies quickly jumped onto the video game bandwagon. One of the first was Coleco. Yep. Which produced a multi-game Pong clone for the home called Telstar. With the 1976 Christmas season close at hand, Coleco jumped the gun and produced the tens of thousands of units which they planned to release to stores once they received the critical approval from the FCC. Because the FCC has to approve everything. All the Nintendos, all the PlayStations, my Steam Deck, everything. So once that was taken care of, it would have been a good strategy, except that the Telstar failed its radio frequency interference (RFI) compliance testing, which put FCC approval in jeopardy. The FCC gave Coleco a few days to repair the problem, but if Coleco couldn't fix it by the end of the week, the company would have to begin its entire FCC testing process all over again. That would have delayed the release of the stored Telstars until after the lucrative Christmas season. The company would then lose $30 million worth of business from the inventory that had. Okay, so this is the interview continued. This is weird, the way they're doing this. But here we go. So Ralph Baer says, they didn't think it had any merit. What's new about that? For every guy who has imagination, there are always 15 guys who don't. EGM says, but if they liked your game idea, Ralph continues, then they might have had games such much earlier. Well, maybe, because remember, in 1950, transistors were barely a gleam in our eye. Transistors were very rudimentary. No one could even dream of using them in a consumer product, and to build a game with vacuum tubes, it's possible. I started that way. That little 4-tube cases on the table where there was the first thing I built just to show you you can move a spot around on the screen, and that we knew how. Everything was kludgy and big and heavy and hot in those days, but it would have been possible, I guess. Yeah, I mean, we think about World War II or World War One, where they had rooms. I mean, you would have a whole rooms full of computers, and now, like with the silicon chip, you have to think that everything is much smaller. You can fit things in your hands. Um, EGM asks, when you were demonstrating your prototype, did you ever fear that video games might never take off? No, I knew sooner or later we'd find somebody. It was just too good. Once we had the ping pong game going, bingo, that was it. We knew we had something. EGM asks, what if you had never come up with the idea for the brown box? Ralph says, somebody else would have come up with it. Look at the other track. I did this work in the 60s and the 72, and in 72, the Odyssey shows up. 7 to 8 years later, Steve Jobs and Wozniak build Apple II. What's the first thing you did with an Apple? Play very primitive games, right? Of course. Maybe home games would have become a derivative, a cheaper version of computer games. Take the Apple, take the keyboard off, take the other bits you don't need off. Plug it into your home TV set and you have a game. Then again, if I had done nothing and Nolan Bushnell plowed ahead with coin-op games, it may have dawned on him a year or 2 or 3 later that you could reduce his thing to a home version. EGM asks, have you ever met Nolan Bushnell? Ralph says, Nolan and I met on the steps of the federal courthouse in Chicago in 75. Magnavox started a lawsuit going against Bally Midway. Bally Midway and a few others. Here he is. So here's another picture. So here he is playing with the Pong. Here's the box again. Now this is the more of this. Let me see. I have to go back. This is so clumsy the way they did this. I wish they had, like, they have a narrative here, and then they have. So in the black text, the company would then lose 30 million worth of business, and then inventory, and from the inventory that had. So they're talking about Magnavox and Coleco. So we're talking about Coleco here. So the Coleco systems were sitting in the warehouse in this text here. Coleco's president turned to Baer. So they turned to this guy they turned to Baer, who we had met previously for help. By coincidence, Baer controlled an RFI test lab at Sanders. Baer was more than happy to offer his services if Coleco first signed Magnavox's licensing agreement. They did so the next morning, and then the testing began on Wednesday, 2 days before the deadline. On Thursday, Baer figured out the solution to the problem, and on Friday, Coleco received its approval. Baer saved the company from a major disaster. So, he's an engineer. He can figure out if there's some sort of technical issue or something, if the system's going to go on fire and there's smoke coming out of the back, Ralph Baer's the one that's going to be able to fix this problem. He has to. So this episode, well, he didn't have to, but he did it. People came to him. He was the ultimate engineer. He knew how to take apart everything. This episode began a fruitful relationship between Sanders and Coleco. So Sanders and Baer were signed to develop 2 video game consoles, Combat, which had the tank-like controllers built into the unit, and the Telstar Arcade, a triangular-shaped unit that had a light pistol with the steering wheel built in that I showed you already. The console accepted triangular cartridges for additional games. Baer had also invented and licensed to Coleco a video game peripheral for preschoolers that operated in conjunction with an audio tape player. As the story was read from the tape, children were directed to perform simple game-like tasks on the screen. If the tasks were performed correctly, the tape acknowledged the feat and continued. The device is called the Kid Vid. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. Of course, people could copy the tapes. That's another thing they could do. That's true. And you could lose money. I think because the ZX Spectrum, the UK system, had a tape system, but obviously, people like Clive Sinclair cared more about making the system happen. Copying games and losing business, that was not the thing. Okay, we're going to go right into the interview. We're going to segue into this part. The interview between the the president, the editor here for EGM, for Electronic Gaming Monthly, and Ralph Baer. Ralph Baer continues, I met Nolan, and Atari was getting sued, Magnavox, oh no, not Magnavox, Atari, Midway, and Bally were getting sued. So I met Nolan. He had a lawyer with him, and I was with him for a couple of our lawyers, and we shook hands and exchanged a few words. Within days, Nolan got together with our lawyers and decided to take a license. He must have figured it was the better part of valor, pardon me here, and to spend a few bucks and to take a license and have Magnavox protect him from all the knockoffs. EGM says, do you think Bushnell benefited more than he should have from your work? Ralph says, I don't think so because he built a successful company and he and his guys did all the right things. I have no problem with that. The only problem that I had was that he always claimed to be the inventor. Get it straight. He invented a coin-operated game in 71, Computer Space, and he knew nothing about me. So he independently came up with the idea of doing a coin-operated video game, no doubt about it. The fact that I had done the work earlier than he did has nothing to do with that concept. He wasn't thinking of home games, he was thinking of arcade games, and that's a different thing. It wasn't until he saw my work, the Magnavox Odyssey game, that he saw that this is a much bigger thing than coin games. That's when the light dawned on him, of course, and he would never admit to that. And I don't blame him because Pong was a big success out there. And so he had his face in front of the camera all the time. He was a good-looking, photogenic guy, bright, personable. Well, he was also a licensee. Like I said, and I wasn't going to piss all over a license. But after a while, it began to stick in my craw. Do you still keep up with games? EGM asks. Ralph says, only when I read in the press. I don't. So now we're going to go back here. The device, the kid vid, the Teddy Ruxpin tape thing. I remember my brother, who was blind, he had an R2XL. It was a robot, right? So you imagine this is a robot, and there would be a tape player in here. You push buttons, true or false. It's kind of like that. KidVid had been designed to work with Atari's hugely popular VCS 2600 Atari game console. Unfortunately, Coleco followed the Magnavox primer to video game marketing and advertised the KidVid as a companion to its Gemini, a 2600 clone. Most owners of the 2600 were not aware that the KidVid worked with their console and completely ignored it. Today, the KidVid and the Smurfs and Berenstein Bear software that was released with it are quite rare and highly prized by collectors. Okay. Baer's final product for Coleco was a system that would marry Coleco's ColecoVision video game system for their Atom computer with a 5-inch version of the RCA Selectavision video disc player. In effect, this was the precursor of the modern CD-ROM. In anticipation of this system, Coleco spent $2 million for the home rights to Dragon's Lair. Unfortunately, due to Atom's failure and Coleco's consequent financial problems, the greatly anticipated unit never saw the light of day. So, wow. So the Selectavision, yeah, they were thinking ahead. A 5-inch version of the Selectavision video disc player. Okay. Wow. I have to look this up because when I think of the 5-inch version of anything, I think of DVDs, we think of these. So he came up with that before we had DVDs in our hands. With Laserdisc, but that was like in the early 90s. During the past 15 years, Baer continued to invent electronic toys such as the perpetually popular Simon by Milton Bradley and gadgets. First in his spare time and more recently on a full-time basis, his interest in video games never waned, as a trip to his workshop could attest. Yeah, this guy's always inventing. The workshop, which occupies most of the basement of his sprawling ranch home in New Hampshire, reveals old Atari and Nintendo consoles hooked up to TVs. They are not there for his amusement. Instead, Baer uses them to demonstrate his new video game peripherals. For instance, he hooked up an exercise bike to the Atari console and used it as a controller for racing games such as Night Driver and Enduro. Now, I'm not sure who helped Nintendo, but a long time ago, And my exercise bike is in the other room, so I really have to jump over there. Um, a long time ago, 1994, 95, Nintendo Entertainment System was going to come out with an exercise bike. And so you pedal your legs, you're racing, and then you control Pac-Man, among other games. Never happened. They were supposed to be released in fitness centers. Never happened. I don't know what happened. They didn't even try to do that. That was one of the things after Virtual Boy, they got spooked. I don't know what happened. So let's see what we got. While he doesn't have either a PlayStation or N64, he keeps abreast of today's technology and is very impressed with the strides that Sony and Nintendo made for the industry. However, he doesn't need to work at the new systems to invent products for them. His latest invention is still in a rudimentary form of an old NES console. On an old NES console will be an exciting new peripheral that will work on any game system. Unfortunately, the highly competitive and what we have down here, recorded history. So here's these documents here. These 4 pages contain Baer's first serialized scribbled notes for a home video game system. He wrote them back in 1966, when he was chief engineer for equipment design at Sanders Associates. Check out ralphbaer.com. And I'll put, you know what? I'll write a comment in the video. I'll put ralphbaer.com, and I'll see if I can find that video that I put before of when he was doing a Let's Play of Pong. So let's see. Oh, I love this image. So if you could quite see it, there is Ralph Baer with the damn Simon. Was the Magnavox Odyssey's first programmable console? So there's confusion. So the Odyssey came out. I'm going to just kind of go over this quickly. Odyssey was the first programmable machine. A programmable console is one that could play different games by loading different programs into it. So it was the first one. The Sony and PlayStation are and Nintendo 64. So Nintendo's, PlayStations, Xboxes, they're all programmable machines. This is opposed to a dedicated machine which has games pre-programmed into it. This is the Fairchild Channel F right here. If you go to Classic Game Room, you can find way more than I can tell you right now. So this debuted in August 76. The first. So let me see. So August 6, 1976 was the first programmable machine. So the system, unlike so each time, the original Odyssey was packed with 6 circuit boards that were available optionally. Each of these boards caused the ball and paddle graphics. If that's the case, wouldn't the Odyssey and not the Channel F be the first programmable console? The answer is no. So which of these came first? In the case of the Odyssey, all of the different games are programmed into the system just as in any other standard dedicated machine. In other machines, the different games are accessed by flicking a toggle switch or turning a knob. The boards inserted into the Odyssey weren't actually cartridges. They were more like keys that told the machine which program to run. So the Channel F was indeed the first true programmable console. The Odyssey, on the other hand, was the first and only programmable dedicated console. It was truly a unique machine in more ways than one. So this was Ralph Baer's his was his entry into the video game market. So, if they ever try to do another Magnavox, use the license, I don't know if Mark Baer, Ralph Baer's son, that I talked about, holds this license for this, or Magnavox or whatever. But anybody that tries to make a legacy console like the Coleco Chameleon, like the Amico in television, if you fuck this up, shame on you. Because enough of that already. All right. So we have the interview here and then more text. How am I going to do this? Okay. Let's see. I'm going to put it here. Okay. This is hard because I don't have much images. Otherwise, I would just show you an image. So Ralph Baer says, I don't have the time. I don't have the patience. I don't have the dexterity to play games. Are you surprised at how big the industry has grown at its strides, EGMS? Ralph Baer asks, "Oh, of course. You have to be surprised at how everything has mushroomed. I still use an Apple in my lab. Uh, it has 64K kilobytes of memory, not 64 megabytes, 64 kilobytes, and that's only 15 years old. So, pardon me here. 85? Yeah, 1985. So he got his Apple computer, Apple IIc, I think. I remember the Apple computers. The You have 5-inch floppy disk, and they would be inserted in vertically. Okay, so here he is with his Simon there. Um, let's see. It's just incredible what's going on. I'm not going to be around to see all the fantastic things that will happen in the next 25 years. No, but but it's just unbelievable. We're already down to the molecular level in screwing around on the chip. Pretty soon we're going to run out of the ability to lay down transistors and other components on the chip. Because we're optically limited by wavelength, and then we get to size and everything else changes inside. So now they're already screwing around with moving molecules, and there are chips that use optical technology for communicating between elements on the chip. We're only in the beginning of things. Um, the current nature of the video game. So I'm reading now the text. So the current nature of the video game business prevents him from disclosing any detailed information about the new product before he has secured adequate patent protection and a license. After all, Baer has learned the value of patents, having spent the better part of 20 years helping to protect both his and Sandra's patents in and out of court. Although I might try to find a list of all those patents, if I could do some shorts, basically um, what he had worked on and stuff like that. Although now in his mid 70s, Baer, this was a wow, this is how old this is, right? Uh, Baer displays a childlike enthusiasm when he demonstrates his inventions. Despite the number of patents in his name, from talking greeting cards to interactive cable TV, it is still the brown box that he's most proud of. The original prototype of the first video game system sits in a special part of his lab. The world's first light gun sits alongside it. Both are in remarkably excellent working condition. In a world filled with 3D graphics and stereo sound, the next the most remarkable thing about the brown box becomes clear when it's switched on. The game's still just as fun to play today as it was 30 years ago. That alone is a testimony to the everlasting appeal of the work of Ralph Baer, the father of video games. So I think that is all that there is to it. I like this one part here. Where is it? I like this one part. Where it says here, your Dreamcast, your PlayStation, your Nintendo 64, they're all technological descendants of Baer's brown box when he keeps in his basement. Then this thing still works. That's fantastic. And I think there's another interview somewhere. I don't know where that is right now, but if I get a chance, I'll do a follow-up video, and I might even do it as a post and not live stream. But this is what I wanted to show you. This was something to me. I really, it's amazing stuff. And now we are we are using VR. I'm not sure what he thought of VR. I would love to know Ralph Baer's opinion on VR and stuff like that. What Mark Baer, if he's in charge of all that stuff. All the stuff is theirs now. So I don't know what's going to happen to those patents, if they're just going to die. But what Mark Baer was talking about in Tommy's video was that he was talking about the museum of preserving everything and holding on to things. We can look at the rest of this magazine while I'm talking. There's that Magnavox. There's the Magnavox. And yeah, it's just keeping that legacy alive in a museum now because, oh yeah, the Slick 50, Joanna Dark. There's Co-op Play. This game, R.E. Veronica. PS2. There, the VMU, very nice little thing. I still have both of them, that they still work. I like the little images that show up in Sonic Adventure. Here is Dino Crisis. I have the PS Vita version. We have gotten to a point now that I think we'll start having more interactivity. I think those augmented reality things that you see in the Mario Kart Ride Super Nintendo world is sort of going in between reality. Because if you see this in your goggles, right, but you look around, there's nothing there, but you see this image kind of playing. It's like, imagine if your friend looks like this because he wants you to see him as this weird minion, and then he has his glasses on and he sees you as as Beast Man, right? So everybody has their own reality with these AR goggles. I feel like we're getting to that point where interactivity, blending in video games, getting off the TV and sort of in the real world, kind of like with Pokemon Go. I feel like that we are seeing the beginnings of seeing stuff like that. You know, like where what goes beyond Twitch and look at all this stuff. The 50 things surround sound. There's a few more things in here. I'm just showing you the rest of this magazine, so I might as well. Edicts, Dancing Dragons. Does anybody have Dancing Dragons? Does anybody have this game? And there it is again. Xbox. 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 And there's Ooh La La. I have to finish this game. There's some games I have not. There's so many games. It's like Vinny Vinesauce talked about 2 days ago, well, on Sunday, one of his Sunday streams. Everybody, people, there are people who play the most popular games like Elden Ring or Fortnite or Minecraft, and they say, God, these games suck. I'm like, the games don't, I mean, maybe those ones suck, but there's other games. There's other games out there. And you just have to find, this is the kind of phones I used to have. I used to have these kinds of phones when I was 21. Uh, it was because of this kind of a phone that I learned not to text and drive. Very, very important lesson there. I got Armorines. Anybody remember this? Look at all these peripherals. What is it? Somebody said, look at this one here, 3.5 on the 10. Would you want this thing sticking out of your PlayStation? Not really. And the top one was the arcade stick for the Dreamcast. I don't know if Mr. Dreamcast 84 has that, but if you want to get that, these are all the ratings. This is the review crew of all the people. I wonder where all these people went. Are they still alive? Are all these people still alive? They all have gray hair now. All these people. Hey, I gotta get my pension. Hold on, from REGN. Anyway, they're in their 50s now, 40s or 50s. Turok Rage Wars. Look at all this stuff. Look at all these games. Medal of Honor, the original Medal of Honor for PlayStation. Game Boy, we still have to sell some Game Boy Color games. Oh my gosh. Look at all this stuff. This is Ralph Baer's legacy. All these things that came about. Look at this. Oh my God. Why do I remember this shit? Look at this. The Boomerang 64. Why? Why? Oh my God. Anybody, I want to hear your comments. Did you buy this and did you grip it, or did you like put it on a table and then play it? In case anybody wants to know, I have a Sharps container for my handicap, but that's if anybody actually fucking watches the whole thing. This is the archive in television classic games. Yeah, where were these games, Tommy? Why didn't you put these games on your system? They didn't even have the rights to Earthworm Jim. That's the reason anybody bought this. Anybody remember this code? This is for Virtual Fighter. You get the alphabet code. Oh my God! They even went to the trouble of illustrating the cheat. Obi-Wan. Yeah, Phantom Menace. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we haven't got to episode 2 yet. The Encyclopedia Podexia. This is the God. Anybody have this? Somebody would have this. What is this one? Wow. Portable MP3 goodness. Let's see, home free. Wow. USB. Jesus. I think it's sort of another hard drive, a soft drive. Laser tennis. This is Pong, but like electronic Pong, because you could do that. Sonic Boom, but not the cartoon, not the no. These are figurines. What is this from? Oh my god! I'm sorry if I'm taking too long here. Sonic Adventure action figures. These were the original ones. Okay. I know I saw some other ones later on. That I think. Oh, look at this! Look at these prices for a Neo Geo Pocket. Donkey Kong 64. This is so old. Old. And there is Lara. The way you were meant to see Lara. There is Jill Valentine, February 2000. Okay, well, this magazine's really old. I'm glad I shared this all with you. And tonight I will do a post for this. This is Star Fox Assault. It will be a happier post, unlike fucking adventures. And that was it. If you like what you saw, you see the icons below, you know what to do.